On stage at the Sun Plaza in Tokyo, they were already beginning to assemble the equipment for Billie G's show. As the vicar did his tour of inspection, all the workers would stop and bow politely. It was rather more like Prince Charles on a royal walkabout than a sound engineer rigging a concert, particularly an engineer who could be about to face the biggest disaster of his career. Anyway, this Japanese stuff is all very fine, I thought, but it's not a proper venue if it's not covered in graffiti and if you can't smell the toilets as soon as you walk in. The vicar moved over to the drum riser and regaled the bemused workers with some of his vast repertoire of drummer jokes. "How do you tell when the snare drum is level?" he asked. "When the spittle rolls off both sides at the same time." "What do you call a drummer without a girlfriend?" "Homeless." He was penniless last time, he told him, but it comes to much the same thing, I suppose. "What do you call the person left in the room after all the musicians leave?" "The drummer." He turned to introduce me. "Let me introduce Punk, my able assistant and a very fine drummer. His band have been thrown out of all of the best pubs in London." The crew now all bowed to me. It's difficult to imagine anything more ridiculous. It was almost embarrassing. Here I am, a confirmed revolutionary, with a series of Japanese roadies bowing to me and saying, "Hurrah, Punk-san!" The vicar was highly amused at my discomfort and wandered away, laughing to himself, to talk to Tetsu about a photographer for the following night. "He must be very discreet and must wait up there." He pointed to a gantry on the stage right, high above the lighting rig. "He must observe and photograph, but not interfere. You must make that most clear. Trust me, Vicar-san. I will see to it." "I do trust you, Tetsu. You are one of the very few people that I think I can trust. You and Hawk." One of the Japanese crew came over carrying a mobile phone. "It is Mr. Richard for you, Vicar-san." Breamore had phoned to say that he'd heard on the grapevine that Emma had checked into the capital Tokyo hotel. He was also trying to track down Kevin, who had apparently failed to turn up for a band meeting. "That surprises me very little," advised the vicar. "I should not let it worry you. I am sure he will turn up for the sound check tomorrow, if not before." Breamore's response to this was so loud that the vicar pulled the phone away from his ear and waited for him to finish. "You look after the musicians, Richard, and I will ensure that there is no problem at my end." He handed the phone to me. "See if you can get Emma B for me. Capital Tokyo Hotel," he asked, handing me the phone, before wandering away to inspect the mixing desk. Tetsu found the number for me, but the very polite receptionist was very sorry to inform me that there was no Emma B staying in the hotel. "Ask for Mrs. McAllister," the vicar shouted over. I looked at him, wondering how on earth he could know such a thing. He smiled at me as if to say, "I have my contacts, you know." And I was duly put through to Mrs. McAllister. "Hello, Emma," I said, rather embarrassed. "I have the vicar for you." "Oh, not him again," she yelled. "Who the hell does he think he is? And how the effing hell did he get this number? Does he never give up?" "No, I'll speak to him." "Put him on." I was carrying the phone over to him, but he just shouted at me, "Ask her what contraception she uses." I stared at him in disbelief and I put my thumb over the mouthpiece before mouthing to him, "I can't do that." "Go on, ask her," he said. "But I can't," I continued. He grabbed the phone from me. "Hello, Emma. Welcome to Japan. I have an important question for you. I trust that you will not let any ridiculous feminine sensitivities get in the way of a perfectly sensible question. What contraceptive do you use?" There was silence. "She's put the phone down," he said. "Women really are a strange breed. Do you understand them? Ask a man if he has had the snip, and he will tell you all about it. Perfectly acceptable dinner-time conversation. Ask a woman if she puts a small white tablet in her mouth every night, and she rings off on you. I suppose there are alternatives, though. I mean, she could have been using the coil, although that sounds far too painful. You wonder if anyone would be mad enough to try it. Surely it must be preferable to have 15 children rather than a large piece of metal implanted up you know where. What do you think, my young friend?" I stared blankly at him, trying to decide if he was playing some complicated psychological game or if he was quietly taking leave of his senses. He called Tetsu over. Fortunately, he didn't ask him about his wife's contraceptive habits. "I think we have finished here now, Tetsu. Make sure that I am given the valve compressor that I have asked for, and all will be well. The position of the mixing desk is perfect. Now, Punk is beginning to fear for my sanity. Time to leave it all in your capable hands and go back to the hotel for a rest. Has Hawk finished checking the place out?" He carefully surveyed the scene again before heading away. "I will see you later at the dinner with Honourable Mr. Udo," Tetsu said. Mr. Udo was the Japanese promoter of the show. I'd seen his name on all the posters. The vicar shook himself as if he had a chill. "If I had ever thought that attending Mr. Udo's dinner was a necessary part of this job, I would have declined. You must understand, Tetsu, the deep-seated loathing I have for such events. I have not yet had time to visit my hotel room, and yet I am expected to mingle and press the flesh. I'm sure Punk would be pleased to attend on my behalf. Tetsu looked shocked at the suggestion. You would enjoy it, Punk. It is undoubtedly one of the most expensive meals you will never eat. Large slabs of animal being cooked on hot stones in front of you. Unfortunately, he bowed to Tetsu to show that he was accepting the invitation. I shall have to attend. The Japanese take these things very seriously. Mr. Udo would regard it as a personal slight. In any case, you are far too short and smelly. Only tall, clean people are allowed. It's a very strict rule. We took the lift back towards the dressing room and to the stage door. He'd recovered his good sense of humour. Unfortunately, Mr. Udo does always feel obliged to invite the artists, although Billy G is surprisingly house-trained. There was a rock guitarist several years ago who got up on the table and pissed all over the food. God only knows what the Japanese made of that. And there are times when you are truly embarrassed to be British. I followed him into the back of the van. If Gabriel makes it back alive, I would suggest that the two of you go in search of a sushi bar. I was taken to one last time I was here. Bizarre. They know that I'm vegetarian, and yet choose a sushi restaurant. Something failed to connect. A carnivore like you would probably enjoy the live eels chopped and skinned in front of you. I pulled a revolting face. Not to your taste, no? Try 3 different Japanese inventions: geisha girls, sake, and karaoke. Perhaps you will strike it lucky and be able to do all 3 at the same time. There was a young man called Punk who drank sake and got very drunk. He sang karaoke and wanted some pokey, something, spunk. He lay back in the large seats of the van. And you thought my poetry stopped at Chaucer. You've got all the time until tomorrow morning to think of the last line. Home, James, don't spare the horses. Now, I wonder if the Imperial Hotel can run to a decent pot of Earl Grey. That boy's not good. He's got ears the size of a deer face. Broken nose and a twisted face. With a voice that over breakfast, I tried to persuade the vicar that he must do something rather than sleepwalking his way to disaster. You're like that emperor fiddling while Rome burned, I said. Yehudi Menuhin. Now that is serious. I was so relieved. It's possible that I cried.